Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Lloyd Fuentes, Director of IT for the Los Angeles mission. Lloyd, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Matthew, for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past theirs. That's where Cyberlinks comes in. We've partnered with the best cybersecurity companies in the world to be able to provide our clients with the best solutions at the best prices. So whether it's managed SIM, SOC, EDR, MDR, XDR, you name it, we'll help you find the best solution at the best price. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Lloyd, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about the Los Angeles mission and your role there as Director of IT?
Yes, so the Los Angeles mission has been around for about 85 to 89 years. We originally started out as a soup kitchen and homeless shelter. Now we have transformed to more rebranding as a stabilization center, where now we offer services, not only just housing, we offer services from getting your ID, to getting new clothes, to taking showers, to finding housing, going through the program, to rehabilitation, where we practice more a faith-based system, and where you go through our program and you have to practice sobriety and actually reclaim your faith into Christian. So we're a Christian organization. We're a 501(c), but we're a church-based nonprofit. And then my role at the company is the Director of IT. I've been here for around 4 to 5 years. I originally got introduced to the company as a consultant, and I was just coming in to assess their network infrastructure, the cybersecurity posture, the cloud redundancy, their compliance side of it for the audits, and then just really trying to get their operation on the IT side of it back up and running to actually implement automation, things that were taking like high tickets, understanding why that was happening, and just really assessing the whole overall structure of the IT department, but then also to the operational technology that myth that sits in, not the myth, the thing that sits behind that people don't really assess when it comes to actually running the IT department. And then from there, I just was like, you know what, I'll finally come on board. And then we just went from there, redesigning. I only had a year, and I know this sounds crazy, but when I originally got here, I had a year to fix a lot of stuff. From even just one thing that I talk about that I'm really happy that I fixed was our cybersecurity posture. When I first got here, we had AVG as an antivirus on all of our endpoints. So, nice. Okay, so we have this, and then also we had a firewall. So I'm like, okay, we're doing our due diligence and going from there. But I was like, this is not enough. So then I kind of came up with a plan to use partnerships to help me, because if you know anything about nonprofits, you know that it's really budget restricted. And a lot of times they don't pour money into their IT departments. All that money is poured into the development departments for fundraising, to the operation side, making sure that the lights, the water and everything is turned on, is kept on, to your kitchen, to your food department, and then also to making sure that food comes in, and all kinds of things that help. So the money is already being flooded to other departments, where IT department is like, is it really a necessity to, we just have computers. They look at it as just computers. Yep. They're not looking at it as the protections that are needed, because one, you have donors And that's a sensitive data that you need to protect at all times, because how do you establish the trust between the donor and the company and the way you fundraise? So then you ensure your donors that, hey, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that data is protected in the company, then they'll trust you more and say, hey, you know what? Since you ensured me that my data and my information is being stored safely, here goes, from $50 to $1,000. So establishing that donor trust is another way of, in the nonprofit world, that cybersecurity side of things that play its role. And from there, from a year to the next year, I established getting a SIM, making sure that we had an EDR, an MDR, making sure we had an MFA system installed on how we unlocked our workstations,
Nice.
To an email protection tool, to patch management. So now we can automate how we update the your workstations, to redesigning our whole wireless infrastructure, to the network infrastructure, to putting all these network side of things on using Cisco Meraki. So leveraging a lot of different things that they weren't even privileged of looking at. And trying to stay within a budget and kind of really buying into the key stakeholders as far as trying to go get the money, saying like, hey, I promise I won't screw this up. Just give me, let's say, I saved the company around $330,000 within that first year from upgrading all the systems, to our VoIP, our IP phones. We had Mitel, which was it's Ring Central now, to upgrading that, and the phone systems were dated about 12 years. So now I switched everything over to a more modern VoIP system, to now where I kind of went to the board members and I'm like, for every phone call we miss, that's $5,000. And if we miss 5 calls, that's $25,000 that we just missed in donations. So I said, we have to upgrade this system. So now I don't even have to be at my desk to take a phone call. And that blew their minds. Like, you mean I have to be balled and chained to my desk?
That's
so
right.
They really bought in on that side of things. And where I'm like, no, we just download the app. We're connected straight to the phone system, and we're able to move around. We're able to go to meetings across the town. We're able to take a call in Japan, or it's like sky's the limit now. Where before they were just used to the old traditional way. You have to come in, you sit down, and then that leveraged a lot of the remote work, where COVID has showed us, a lot of companies started flourishing once they switched over to a remote platform, and actually allowing to see if the production level goes higher, because a lot of times people don't have to take that drive in, so they're stuck in an hour-long traffic. So then that kind of helps with that employee relationships with the company, because now you're kind of giving back to your employee, but you don't really realize it, because now you're saving them 2 hours, where that's an hour to work and an hour back home. And now they're not as stressed, like, oh, I got to fight traffic. So it's all those things. So then even furthermore on the cybersecurity side of things, it was just, now we kind of like, how do we improve? How do we keep going? What kind of architecture do we want? Do we want to move over to where we see the trends are going, where we want the zero trust network architecture, or do we want to just, keep the same least privilege model, or how do we assess that? But then how do we keep improving where threat actors are not seeing us as stagnant and seeing that, oh, okay, well, we know this, so then let's try a new attack, or, so like we keep trying to improve and improve. And I know most nonprofits don't look at it this way, but you have to, because when it comes to that donor trust, that's where they're going to buy in. And I think you have to funnel a lot of that, or allocate a lot of that money back to that cybersecurity side when it comes to the IT department. Because then not only does it help you on the donor trust, it helps you lower your cybersecurity insurance and stuff like that. So now cybersecurity insurance people are looking like, oh, okay, well, they're doing their due diligence. They're following certain compliances and going from there. So
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think that historically, I think nonprofits have struggled to really, as you've said, to allocate the funds. But I think it's been more the mind, shift. I think COVID helped a lot, with that to say, hey, wait, ransomware could hit everybody, and we do have to protect our donors' information. What happens if we get ransomware? Then what do we do? So I think, and you've obviously did, such a great job coming in and kind of getting them, kind of cleaned up and modernized, which is, I don't think everybody will appreciate. If you haven't worked in a nonprofit or for a nonprofit, or with a nonprofit, it is a lot like working with a startup, in ways, but in a kind of like a small business in a small town, I'd say, kind of way, where they treat it like it's a small business. They're very passionate about what they're doing, and they're not, they don't have this modern business philosophy a lot of the times of, hey, we need to modernize and keep. So the fact that you were able to get them there is, a testament to you. So good job, because a lot of IT folks really fail to kind of bridge that gap and help people get there. One of the things I love is the tabletop exercises, where you basically, go and you have all the key players there, and you say, hey, you just schedule, like, sometimes you don't even tell them what it is. You're like, hey, we need to have a strategy session. Oh, okay. And you schedule like 30 minutes, and you're like, so I want to strategize over these scenarios. What do we do? We come in and all of the computers have ransom messages on. They're like, what? How'd that happen? You were in charge. They're like, it doesn't matter. Like, the fact is, that's what happened. What do we do now? We're like, oh crap. And now they start thinking about it. Okay, well, now let's think about our old phone system goes out. What do we do? We're out of phones for a week, right? Like, until we get the new phone system in, or Mitel can do that. And it's just getting them to think about this stuff, because they're so busy. They're not IT people, and they're so busy doing their thing, that they never think of it from your perspective of, you think about it all day, every day, and at night, and when you're sleeping, you're thinking, what do I do if I wake up tomorrow and there's ransom messages on the computers, right? It's a bad day, right? And
yeah,
so, but they don't think that. They're like, oh, Lloyd's got it. That's his problem.
yeah,
And so they don't even think about it. Then when you're like, hey, I need some money, like, you come
yeah,
come begging for money. They're like, it's okay, we're good. We haven't had a ransom yet, or whatever. So no, I
yeah.
think that's great. Well, let me ask you, because I think it was really cool to hear kind of the progression, because you give this really nice view of what it's like kind of working for a nonprofit. But how did you get there? Can you tell us your origin story? How if you will, how you got into
Yeah.
tech and how you got to where you are?
Oh man, that kind of has to go back to growing up. I grew up in San Bernardino, in the Carbondale area, our neighborhood. Um, There, it was heavily populated by gangs, drugs, a lot of daily danger, as I can describe it. Um, but it was there, in high school, where I discovered, like, basically the power of technology, and I had a Cisco computer technician class, and that's when it kind of like blew my mind on breaking down the computer, installing a motherboard, installing the RAM, understanding where the processor goes, understanding to turn. Oh, I need the network interface card. Let me place that in, because it's not. I'm not gonna be able to plug the Ethernet cord in. Oh, what if I wanted to make it wireless? Okay, then I need this card. So it was kind of there is where I kind of got my first discovery. But it wasn't until I went, I moved to LA. I was a security guard, and I remember asking a guy that I used to see, and he worked for AT&T, come in all the time. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm installing, internet for a customer." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "How do you do that? How you getting that?" So I ended up applying for AT&T. He told me how to do it. And then that's where I kind of like took off. I was a premise technician for AT&T, and I ended up being very fortunate because of my personality. I always enter into spaces where it's I never kind of see. I just always walk into that space. And I worked at the Air Force Base, and I would always get these tickets to the Air Force Base. And this network engineer guy kind of introduced me to the whole world. So my first love was the network side of things, and just understanding how to subnet, how to properly put certain computers on VLANs. Okay, why am I doing that on the VLAN? Okay, understanding that it has to have structure and cutting certain computers off from that computer, where you have the accounting department, but the accounting department can't be on the same subnet as the operations department. So if the operations department side of things are one of their endpoints get hacked, then you're almost allowing access to the accounting side, and the accounting is the money. So just understanding how to correctly VLAN and subnet from there kind of just took off. And then I ended up working with AT&T for about 6 years. And then from there, AT&T acquired DirecTV, and then it became massive layoffs. So from there, I'm trying to scramble around to see what am I going to do? Like, what is my next job? So then I ended up going to work for Assurion for about 6 months. And I was just like, I'm working with the engineers. I'm telling the engineers, no, it's not going to work that way. The connectivity side of it, I'm like, look at this. The latency is too high. And I'm going back and forth. I'm like, I should probably be in your role.
That's right.
Because I've seen it before. So my experience is translating over to my new job from me just working with the network engineer at the Air Force Base. So I'm starting to see certain things that I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. I know, if the latency is too high, or if it's a congestion, then we got to look for this. Like, yep. So I'm already kind of like visualizing it, and I'm like, oh no, we need to go this route. So then I ended up being approached and by a company. It was a nonprofit, and I used to help them on the side because I had a business doing consulting, helping companies basically improve their wireless connectivity. Some companies, they had issues around the office. Oh, our Wi-Fi, they just only go off of the ISP's router and wireless router. Yep. And everything. So then they'll just rely on that. I'm like, no, you can't do that. This is too big of a place. You have to set up access points. And so I'm explaining that. And then the one company that I did it for, they were like, you know what? We don't have an IT department here. How about you come help us design it? And I was like, well, that sounds like a big, a big role. So then I eventually said, you know what? Let me just walk into the space. And it's through that moment with like just even my faith, like God kind of just telling me like, just do it, just walk into it. And then I just ended up going into it and taking over, helping them design their IT department, helping them look at access control systems. From there, it just went rapid. Anything that my hands could touch and start designing, I started like requiring it, like more information, like, oh, how do I install this? Okay, now I see. Okay, I know how to bring network connectivity to it. Yep. Okay, let me do it this way. Okay, I already know that this has to be subnetted. Let me do all the IPs. Let me start a log and start having an asset management on what endpoints on this network. So it started like really designing my world, but at on the job training, because I didn't have a chance to make a mistake. I had to start designing everything, and then from there, from that company, I ended up doing the consulting side for my now company, Los Angeles Mission, where they were losing their VP of IT, and the CEO was like, you know what, I'm losing my VP of IT. Can you please just come do the assessment And then after I gave them the assessment, they was like, I don't even know how we are going to get to this, where you're talking about. Because I think I quoted them about $500,000 to upgrade everything, and that's really where they were at, because they didn't have no EOL process, they didn't have no EOS servers, and VM servers were out of date from the operating system. They were still on like Windows 2012 or something like that. So I'm like, I said it's okay to stay, some updates behind, but not that far.
Yeah.
Because my general practice is always to stay one update behind, because you never know what that new software or operating system is gonna have, from
Right.
0 day threats to whatever. It's going to be like a patch or a patch glitch.
Yep.
So you never know what's going to happen. So I was just like, you know what? It's kind of like me stepping out on faith again. I'm like, all right, let's go. And it's probably been the most rewarding moment that I've ever took. And I'm pretty sure I have more of those moments down the road. But it's just, coming to help a nonprofit that has so much historical value, that really, it's not about you. It's about just helping the community that, a lot of times people are not seen. So then how do I change that? But I'm talking to a format of technology. So then, well, okay, well, I help by improving their bandwidth, making sure that network connectivity stays up, making sure that their cybersecurity posture is corrected, make sure that their cloud redundancy is failed over 2-3 times. You know what I mean? So it's just like all these things started speaking to me, because your heart is like, okay, well, let me help this way, or I can only help in a monetary value, or no, you can help with your gift and actually improve the company's overall IT structure, and that's kind of like where it took off from there.
Yeah, I
Sorry
mean
to give you
it's so rewarding. I think that's a really cool story, and I love it. And I think we've had so many IT leaders on the show, and no two have had the same path. And I love your path because I think for a lot of people they think that they have to be some sort of crazy genius super hacker at a young age in order to be successful in IT. And so I love these stories that tell that show that you don't have to have grown up with it. You can get into it at any stage. I mean, we've had, you know, whether it's high school or college or in their 20s, 30s, 40s. It's really kind of inspiring. IT, I think, is one of the few fields that, it's kind of like kind of like America. It's the melting pot. We welcome everybody in. Give us your week. You're tired, right? We take them all and we give them the opportunity to succeed. And I think it's really great for young people to hear stories where it's like, not everybody grew up with every advantage. They didn't grow up in households where they had computers, where they had internet, where they had, iPhones, and they didn't get, private, coding lessons and go to coding camps and stuff as a young kid. So for those people, I think it's great to hear these stories that, hey, I came from a tough neighborhood where it was gangs. And I think that's such an inspiring and cool story for people to hear and be like, Nice. And then not only do you do that, but you then get to go and you get to work not only in IT, but in with an organization that's doing good in the world and making so you get to show up every day feeling good about what you're doing. Not everybody gets to do that. I mean, I think people should, right? When you're going, when you're going to a legitimate organization, I think you should feel good because you're making the world a better place, even no matter what you're doing. But yours, it's so obvious. So I love that's such an inspiring story and mission for the youth, and especially the inner city youth. I don't think there are enough examples of you out there. And I think that
correct.
message needs to get told more. And people be like, hey, you know what? Lloyd did it. He came from a neighborhood just like mine, and now he's doing great. Right. And it
Yeah.
wasn't, you didn't have to go and get a PhD from Harvard to do it. because that's not happening. That's not that, for most people, even if they've got it up here, the cost, the even getting into Harvard, come on, it's such a crazy crapshoot. And for most people, it's such a crazy idea. And you're not going to MIT. There's only a handful of people in the country or in the world who get to go to MIT, no matter how smart you are. So I love this story. I think it's so fantastic. So let me ask you. Because I think that's great. I would love to help kind of get that story out there more. I think, whatever we can do to help, because I think your story is a great one. So we'll definitely be, kind of promoting that. But I think it'd be cool to have more episodes about this, like more people, even if a whole new podcast. I could see you doing a podcast series on it because I think it's fantastic. I think it needs to happen so where a kid can grow up and just, be like, oh, hey, check out this podcast, and they hear this story and like, it should, I could do that. I,
Yeah,
you know, give people some hope.
yeah, no, it's most definitely because a lot of times these kids are, they're acting out because they don't have any food, poverty, from to not having clean clothes to all kinds of things. You think about it, it's there. Also, too, and I think the way we talk back to the youth that are growing up in the urban cities, we're talking from a living standpoint where they're only receiving from a survival standpoint. Where the, if that doesn't help me right now, that's something that can wait.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about something that's going to benefit me 5 years from now. So like, yeah, we're influencing it because we're living now. Where before we were just in that survival, like, oh, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna, thrive? How am I pay the bills? I'm thinking all this. Where some kids, they're growing up in houses where they're like, how do I make $5 work for the rest of the week?
Yeah.
And $5 in today's economy doesn't go far.
Mm.
Where they might just be like, well, I can spend $1 here, I can spend $1 there, and they're trying to divide up these things and make rational decisions that just makes it get them through the week, not even the month. They're not even thinking about the month. They just think their things have miniature. I mean, they have basically kind of don't look for the month. They don't look for the year. They look for just the day to day. And that's where it's just like, okay, now we need to kind of like pivot and say, you know what? I understand where you're going through. I've been there. Even if I haven't been there, I understand where you're going through. And I know that you don't want to listen to me, but let's just work on it day to day.
Yeah.
You're going to receive so much more kind of attention because they understand like, oh, okay, well, you're not telling me, oh, in 5 years from now, I can be this when I'm only looking at it from day to day or from the week, like, oh, how am I just get something in my stomach? How am I wash my clothes? I feel embarrassed going to school when I got scuff on my shoes. I got oil stains on my shirt because I had to help my dad with the car changing the oil. So it's all these things that a lot of times people don't look at, and to be able to take your car to go get an oil change is a privilege, where that privilege is not rewarded for that child that's growing up in the urban city.
Yep.
Where because we don't have money to go get an oil change, we barely have money to go get the oil from AutoZone to change it at the house.
Yep.
But then those skills are so transferable because now you understand how to do the groundwork and then build yourself up, because now just by touching it, you can still be able to transfer that over to how you learn. So now let me put a router in your hand. Let me put a network tester in your hand. Let me put a toner. Let me put whatever I can put in your hand so you can see how, okay, well, this is what this is. Let me put a crimper. Let me show you how to make an Ethernet cord.
Yeah.
And I want you to put it down to the 568B standard, or, what I mean? Yeah. So many different things that you have to just talk life. You have to get them to switch out of survival mode to living And that's the only way we're going to be able to kind of get urban city youth interested into the tech side of things without even, being labeled as a nerd, but then just be labeled as a professional, in a sense. Because a lot of times that's where we fail to kind of sell. And
Yeah. I think that yeah, so it's funny because I grew up I was one of five kids in we grew up in a trailer in kind of in not the nicest part of Pennsylvania, right? So we came from very humble beginnings, and it was and it's but it's funny because while they're similar, they're also very dissimilar at the same time, because while while that was the case, I wasn't surrounded by by gangs and violence like that. So for me, even though we didn't have a lot, it was how am I going to get out of this, right? And for me, it was the army was my way out of that, and I knew that that was the only way I was going to make it out of Pennsylvania, make it out of the trailer, make it and get make my way in the world. But I can't help but think that for kids that come from from these tough environments, having hearing and meeting somebody like you and seeing that, wait, this isn't the only option isn't violence and gangs, and I don't again, I've not been there. I've been similar, but I think that it's more about seeing that there are other options. When there are no other options except for gangs and violence and poverty, then you stay in this survival mode, because gangs and violence and poverty are all survival things. So
right,
that's the only thing you've known. It's not that you have to be there, because if the it's that that's all you know. So once you see that the Lloyd examples, and you're like, wait, there are ways out of this. And
mhm,
I can, and having organizations, or even shows where they can be like, oh cool, but I think that having those examples and meeting them and be like, great, I can't imagine. I think it's so cool, because I can only imagine there are going to be so many kids that are going to be able to point to you and be like, you're why I got out of this bad situation. You're why how I got into tech. That's freaking awesome. I love that. That gets me really excited. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. I think that's really, really cool and exciting. And I definitely want to help you kind of, in that mission wherever I can. And I think you guys are doing, the Los Angeles mission does such cool work, and it's so great. So I think I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing that with us. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can, where they can find out more about the Los Angeles mission, how they can help, and more where they can find out more about you?
So yeah, so we're on losangelesmission.org. That'll take you straight to our main page. It has a way to donate. It has so as soon as you put in Los Angeles Mission, they'll have our webpage pop up, and it'll say give now or give monthly. We appreciate if we have recurring donors. So I encourage you to give monthly or give now. $5 helps. A lot of times people be like, oh, it's just $5. That's not gonna. Well, you think about it, all those $5 that add up. If we have 10 guys or 10 women that give us $5, that's almost, that's $50. So, $100 if we have 5 men and 5 women. So we look at it as a plus, because now we have $100 that can spread across for just feeding people, help pay for people taking a shower, having clothes, getting new clothes for the day, being housed for the day. So it's all these things that can help give us. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, Lloyd Fuentes, and then it'll take you straight to my LinkedIn page. And then as far as the company, you'll be able to find me at lfuentes@lamission.net email. So that's my company email. And if you ever have any questions, just reach out. I will scan the email. So if I haven't replied back to you, I'm probably just scanning the email to make sure there's no threats.
Love it. That's great. Well said, and as you should.
Yeah.
Well, Lloyd, until next time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.